Welcome to the Leap into Livestream podcast. My name is Dawn Chubet. One of the biggest lessons I teach within my HSH method of live selling and when working with influencers, ambassadors, and brands is the importance of understanding and be able to tell a brand story or an origin story. And so today I am going to share mine. I want to tell you about the time that I was told that I was forbidden to share what I knew and was in fact threatened if I did. Now, I do want to start by saying that I actually re recorded this podcast because, in my initial version, after reflection, probably a little too much color commentary, I wondered if by sharing my unfiltered side, not just the story, but how I personally experienced it and felt, that almost 2 decades of incredible relationships, trust, and absolutely loving the company I worked for might be erased because of one incident and, frankly, one small moment in time, relatively speaking. So let me start by saying this isn't a smear piece. I loved working for TSC and Rogers, but the story I'm about to tell is, in fact, an origin story for me and ultimately my live selling school. And at the same time, the lead up to a massive moment for me, which was leaving media. But after a good night's sleep, I realized the original recording might have some of you thinking I'm bitter or was treated poorly, when in fact, my ultimate goal in sharing is to help give you perspective to what led me to turn the page and perhaps even inspire you on your own journey toward what you believe might be your own ultimate purpose. So let's begin. A couple of years ago, when my husband got a job back in Vancouver, I was really fortunate that upper management at TSC and Rogers were willing to work with me on a deal that would have me commuting between Vancouver and Mississauga, which is just outside of Toronto in Canada, to work a deal with me in a way that had never been done before with on-air talent. So for 10 consecutive days a month, I was living in a hotel, which just happened to be across the street. And so my life for 10 days a month was work, hotel, work, hotel. And so when I wasn't working and just hanging out at the hotel, I had a lot of downtime. What many of you might not know about me is that I'm a thinker and frankly, a deep thinker. There is always an idea percolating. And when I latch on to what I think is a great one, I become more than a little obsessed. Having hosted a couple of live stream shopping events for TSC outside of our normal broadcast, I started to investigate potential for everyone in this space. I thought it was a great idea. And it wasn't so much for me about why it was great for TSC at the time. It was the potential I saw for content creators, influencers, and definitely for small businesses. So it was at that point I also started to see how I could play a part in this new marketing strategy, this marketing channel. You see, I've always also considered myself an educator. Back in 2013, I started my own company with my husband called King Willow Management, where I would work as a media trainer, a camera confidence builder, and a public speaking coach. I knew how to teach people to do what I did, to help people get comfortable presenting themselves on camera and to the public. So, with that in mind, I thought to myself, why not teach influencers, ambassadors, and founders to do what I do right now as a TV home shopping host, to sell products through the screen? I sold on TV and social media, and while most brands will never get a chance to be featured on TV home shopping channels like TSC, HSN, or QVC, they could, and according to all the data I researched on live stream shopping, should leverage their social media audience and sell to them using the same sales strategies, demonstration, and storytelling techniques that I personally used to sell over $30 million in product over my 7 years at TSC. Now I'll take you to the end of 2022 when I learned that a digital marketing conference called Social Pacific was coming to Vancouver and that the attendees would be marketers, social media managers, PR, and e-commerce experts. I knew this was a room I had to be in. And so I pitched Mike Morrison, who was not only bringing the conference to Vancouver, but also had Social West in Alberta, Social East, and now even has a virtual option called Social Next. The topic I pitched for the 45-minute talk was called How to Sell Like a Home Shopping Host. And needless to say, I was thrilled when I was approved as a speaker. He did up some great graphics, promoted my appearance in the newsletters and on social. And I've had this feeling that with live and social shopping being so new, that marketing experts would be attracted to this talk. They would be super curious about the sales and marketing potential for their clients. I even had 500 pens with my website, livesellingschool.com, made up so that I could leave them on each chair for the attendees. A few months later, there was a change in leadership at TSC. And it's important that I mention this because even though I had an email with the thumbs up from my previous supervisor, somehow now with this new management and maybe with the promotion of the event on social media and LinkedIn, this was brought more to the forefront of not only my new supervisor, but potentially, I don't know, upper management in Rogers. It doesn't matter. So I'll fast forward now to emails and meetings where I was essentially told, and I'm just going to do the nutshell version here because I don't want to get into a gossipy mode, but I was essentially told that I was, and I'll quote, breaching the code of conduct. And the implication essentially was that legal was going to be getting involved. The concern was, and I quote, this would steal business from TSC. I mean, imagine this, that what I knew, how I sold, how I personally told a story, my secret sauce was somehow, and again, I'll quote this, trade secret. I have to tell you, this really made me laugh because when I initially thought of teaching people how to drive sales through live stream on social, my husband can attest to this, I literally had this image of my avatar, my ideal customer being someone who crocheted dishcloths and sold them on Etsy. And I think this concern was coming from a couple of different places. Firstly, if vendors who normally sold their products on TSC knew how to leverage technology to do it for themselves, then they might leave TSC as a business partner. Something I thought was a ridiculous notion because TSC is huge. I mean, they sell billions of dollars of product every single year, and live stream shopping was still and is still in its infancy stages here in the Western markets. And so it just seemed comical that not only there'd be this concern that TSC would lose business as far as vendor partners, but that these small businesses might actually drive more sales cloths and sold them on Etsy. So can you imagine having a huge company with that vision in mind be concerned that someone like that would steal business from them? It seemed comical to me and almost unbelievable that I was having this conversation. But it did give me a light bulb moment. I knew I was on to something, that I had something other people would want, something I could teach them because I had direct, relevant experience in this exact space. I have done the job and I could teach them to do the job. But I wasn't ready to quit. I didn't want a 45-minute keynote that was meant to highlight marketing trends in an area that I was an expert in to quite simply get me fired. So I wrote an email to Mike Morrison pulling my name for Social Pacific. But honestly, all I could ever think about after that moment was how excited I was to help others, to share my knowledge, to educate, to create. And although I still loved my job, I knew that if I still worked at TSC and with Rogers, that idea would have to die. And so 30 days after that threat of action, because I did feel my job was being threatened, I handed in my letter of resignation to TSC. That ended a nearly 20-year run with Rogers. And it wasn't because I didn't like my job. It wasn't even because I had to pull my name from that conference. It was because I had now a clear vision of what my purpose was, to help businesses thrive in the digital age. And it's really hard to explain, although I will say there are a handful of people who probably were tired of hearing me talk to them on the phone about my frustrations and my vision. And they definitely got the unfiltered version of what I was going through at that time. But once I felt that fire of what I knew was possible for me in this space and my life, there was no other option but to leave. And so Live Selling School was born. So why am I telling you this story now? Well, at the time of recording this podcast, Social Pacific is happening again in Vancouver. And I guess it just has me thinking about that lost opportunity. Now, to be clear, I don't actually blame that supervisor. I don't blame Mike Morrison. I might have pissed him off. Maybe he'll never call me again. I don't even blame myself for not being braver and sticking up for myself at the time. You see, I also believe that everything happens exactly the way it is supposed to. And on this day, I think it's important to thank that supervisor for giving me my shit or get off the pot moment, to give me insight that as I reflect on that day that I was so worried I might lose my job by speaking and teaching about what I knew, that if a big company is worried about what I might teach a small business to do, I must be onto something. And with that, if you are the demographic that I'm trying to help navigate live, video, and social commerce, a small business, an ambassador, a TV host, a celebrity, a frontline worker, a founder, listen to some of my past episodes. And if you're so inclined, please hit that subscribe button. Reach out to me, drop into my DMs if I can help you in any way. And thanks for listening.